There's a strange magic in the idea of knowing someone without ever having met them. It's like the universe quietly whispers their presence into your life before reality even allows you to cross paths. I've never met you, yet somehow I feel like I already do, like I've seen the echoes of your laughter in my dreams, like I felt the warmth of your heart even from afar. And maybe that's the most human thing about love, not possession, not proximity, but recognition. That quiet certainty that someone out there somewhere was meant to touch your soul, even if their hands never have. Tonight, I want to talk about that feeling of knowing without meeting, of loving without seeing, and of the inexplicable bond that sometimes exists between two hearts before they even find each other. Even though I have never met you in the ordinary sense of face to face, there is a presence of you that feels tangible, like a whisper in the wind that brushes past the heart, a quiet echo of laughter that resonates before it has ever touched the world, like the soft imprint of someone's soul leaving a mark in a place that exists beyond vision, beyond touch, beyond expectation. It is strange, almost ineffable, how one can feel a connection, not through sight or sound, but through a deeper awareness, a recognition that surpasses the need for physical evidence. Sometimes I imagine the way the universe quietly conspires in moments too subtle for ordinary perception, planting seeds of familiarity in the soul before reality allows our paths to cross, as if it has already sketched a prelude of our story long before the first word could ever be spoken or the first glance could be shared. And in that quiet understanding, I realize that I know you in ways I could never articulate fully, yet it is a knowing that is undeniable, a recognition that feels ancient and unshakable, as if time itself has bent to prepare the space where our spirits might one day intersect. I imagine your smile before it exists, a reflection not caught by the eyes but by the heart, and it brings warmth in a way that feels real, even without certainty, even without confirmation. I think of your voice, not in echoes of sound, but in the vibration of intuition, that sensation that tells me who you are, even if I cannot see or hear you. Love, in this sense, is not bound by proximity or convention. It thrives in the spaces between moments, in the subtle acknowledgement of existence across distances that cannot be measured, in the quiet awareness that someone is there who completes something in the soul that I not even know was incomplete, and so I carry the awareness of you quietly, like one carries a fragile flame in the dark, a secret treasure that illuminates without demanding attention, a feeling both weightless and infinitely profound, an invisible tether to something that might one day become reality. I imagine the ways I might recognize you instantly should our paths ever cross, because recognition is not always born of familiarity in the physical world, but of alignment in the soul, of resonance that vibrates in the chest before the mind has a chance to reason it, a silent acknowledgement that we were always meant to know each other in ways the world cannot measure or explain. Perhaps you feel it too, even without words, a gentle intuition that someone out there is aware of you in the quiet way that only hearts can be, and that anticipation itself becomes a form of companionship, a prelude to the meeting that is yet to arrive. There is something sacred in that waiting, a hope that T is patient, that does not rush, that does not demand, but simply exists, reverent and enduring, understanding that the most profound connections often flourish long before they are seen, before they are spoken, before they are acknowledged in ordinary ways. And in this knowing, there is both longing and contentment, a paradox that is difficult to articulate yet undeniable in its presence, a truth that rests in the quiet folds of the heart like an unspoken promise. It is as if the universe has been patiently holding you in the unseen corners of possibility, preparing a moment that is inevitable yet mysterious, a meeting that is both certain and elusive, a convergence of two worlds that have danced around each other silently, unnoticed by ordinary eyes, yet recognized deeply by the soul. And I am grateful for this unseen connection, for the way it teaches patience, awareness, and the subtle art of understanding that love is not always immediate, not always tangible, but it is present, persistent and unwavering in its quiet, gentle insistence, whispering truths about the heart that cannot be denied, offering lessons in longing, resilience, and the ineffable beauty of hope. I carry the thought of you through the quiet hours, in moments that feel ordinary but are transformed by the imagination into spaces where we might already exist together, where your presence is a constant, delicate companion, a source of both inspiration and solace, a reminder that there are forces in life beyond comprehension, guiding, shaping, and arranging moments in ways that defy expectation. And even though I have never held your hand or seen your eyes, the knowledge of you feels as real as the rhythm of my own heartbeat, as inevitable as the turning of the seasons, as enduring as the wind that passes unnoticed, yet leaves everything in its path, subtly altered. It is a recognition that transcends logic, that transcends proof, a truth that rests in the marrow of the bones, in the quiet chamber of the soul, a feeling that does not waver because it is not rooted in circumstance but in essence, in the unspoken certainty that some connections exist even before the first hello, before the first word, before the world could even imagine them. And so I hold this awareness of you close, not with expectation, but with reverence, with gratitude, with an understanding that life sometimes gives us gifts that exist in silence, that love sometimes arrives without introduction, and that knowing someone without ever meeting them is not a lack, not a void, but a profound form of intimacy that shapes the way we see the world, that changes the way we feel, that teaches the heart to recognize beauty, to recognize soul, to recognize the quiet, invisible threads that connect us all in ways we may never fully understand, yet feel with absolute certainty in every breath, in every heartbeat, in every fleeting thought that carries the memory of a presence that is not yet known, yet is already Fami, liar, already cherished, already eternal in its subtle, indescribable truth. Essence of knowing someone without ever meeting them is one of those rare experiences that the heart understands long before the mind can process it, a feeling that defies conventional reasoning, a quiet insistence that someone exists beyond the boundaries of sight and sound, yet whose presence can transform the way life is felt. It is a realization that love, connection, and recognition are not always born from shared moments, visible gestures, or spoken words, but from a deeper resonance, a vibration that travels across unseen distances and touches the soul with a certainty that is both gentle and undeniable. In these moments of awareness, there is a strange paradox. You feel as though you are intimately acquainted with someone you have never seen, yet the intimacy is not superficial, it is profound, as if your soul remembers what your eyes have not yet encountered, as if your heart has already learned the contours of theirs, anticipating the curve of a smile, the cadence of a voice, the quiet tremor of vulnerability that exists in every human being. And it is in this anticipation that patience is born, the kind that does not rush, that does not demand, that allows life to unfold according to a rhythm far greater than personal desire. The heart learns to wait, to trust, to recognize that knowing someone is not the same as possessing them, and that love exists not solely in the act of holding, but in the quiet acknowledgement that another life has already left an imprint on your own, even without presence, even without certainty, even without confirmation. Every thought of this person becomes an exercise in reflection, a meditation on the invisible threads that connect human experiences, a reminder that existence is not merely about what is tangible, but about what is felt, imagined, and intuited. The soul understands that recognition is a form of intimacy that transcends space and time, a silent communication that passes from one being to another without uttered words, without eye contact, without physical touch, yet with the clarity of 1,000 spoken declarations. There is a weightlessness in this knowing, a freedom, and yet it is tethered by a sense of reverence, a gentle care for something so delicate and unspoken that it feels sacred in its invisibility. To love in this way is to embrace paradox, to feel deeply without evidence, to care profoundly without confirmation, to hope without demand, to imagine vividly without proof, and to cherish quietly without expectation. And in that quiet cherishing there is growth, because it teaches the heart to recognize resonance where the world sees only absence, to trust in intuition where reason might hesitate, and to honor a presence that exists in potential, in possibility, in the spaces between moments and lives. It is in this understanding that a kind of preparation occurs, preparing the self for the day when paths my. T-cross, preparing the spirit to recognize what the heart already knows, preparing life to receive a meeting that may be extraordinary or ordinary, yet inevitably meaningful. There is an artistry to knowing someone without meeting them, an elegance in the patience that accompanies it, and a subtle humility in the acceptance that life is vast and mysterious, and that love does not always conform to expectation, but sometimes arrives in the form of a quiet awareness, a gentle pull, a prelude to a story that is yet to unfold. This recognition becomes a companion, a quiet voice in moments of solitude, a reflection in the stillness of thought, a presence that, though unseen, informs every decision, colors every emotion, and softens every fear. The heart comes to understand that absence is not emptiness, that longing is not despair, and that even without meeting, even without speaking, even without proof, love exists as a force of understanding, a connection of essence, and a truth that can be denied. And so the mind contemplates, the imagination dances, and the soul listens, learning that knowing someone without meeting them is not a deficiency but a gift, not a void but a space of infinite possibility, a place where patience becomes intimacy, hope becomes recognition, and awareness becomes love. Each passing day becomes a rehearsal for the eventual moment of convergence, a silent acknowledgement that life is preparing both hearts in parallel, teaching lessons of empathy, of longing, of quiet courage, of gentle anticipation, of the sacredness of unseen bonds. In this preparation, there is an understanding that love is not always immediate, not always visible, but ever present in the subtle details of thought, in the quiet reflection of moments, in the unseen resonance that vibrates between two lives, waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for encounter, waiting to become tangible without ever having been demanded, waiting to be known in the fullness of time. And in that waiting, there is a quiet joy, a quiet strength, a quiet intimacy, because the heart has recognized what the world has not yet revealed, the soul has touched what the eyes cannot see, and the essence of connection has been experienced in its purest, most patient, most profound form, a knowing without meeting, a love without proof, a recognition that transcends all ordinary measures, and teaches the self that life is not measured only by what is seen or held, but by what is understood, felt, and intuited in the sacred spaces between moments, between souls, between the infinite mysteries of existence. There is a strange comfort in imagining the life of someone you have never met, a solace that comes from picturing them in moments that exist entirely in the mind, yet feel as real as the air we breathe, as tangible as the rhythm of a heartbeat, as profound as the quiet ache of longing. In this imagining, every detail becomes an act of intimacy, every thought a bridge across distance, every vision a silent conversation with a soul that has yet to appear in the physical world, yet already inhabits the heart with certainty. I think of the way they might walk through the world with gestures both subtle and profound, with expressions that reveal the depths of feeling even when words fail, with the quiet tremors of vulnerability that make them human. And I feel a connection that transcends the need for proof, transcends the need for meeting, transcends the ordinary boundaries of time and space. In these imagined encounters, I can see the curves of a smile that has never been shown to me, hear the inflection of a voice that has never spoken my name, feel the warmth of presence that has never existed physically, and yet each of these imaginings feels as though it is part of a reality that is already true, a reality woven by the heart and the soul, independent of circumstance or coincidence. And in that comfort, there is a strange paradox. The deeper I imagine them, the closer they feel, and yet the farther they remain from the physical world, a distance that magnifies both longing and appreciation, a tension that teaches patience, humility, and reverence for something that cannot be owned, only felt. It is in this space that I begin to understand the extraordinary nature of human connection, that recognition and intimacy are not always bound by touch, by sight, or by words, but can exist purely in resonance and awareness, in the subtle acknowledgement that another life has already left an impression upon our own, that someone we have never met has shaped the contours of our emotions simply by existing in the realm of possibility. Every imagined conversation becomes a meditation, a silent rehearsal of empathy, understanding, and hope, as if the act of envisioning them prepares the heart for a meeting that may or may not ever come, and yet it matters not, because the recognition is already real, the connection already felt, the love already formed in its nascent, unseen, invisible ways. In imagining them, I see not only what they might be, but what I am becoming, for the act of envisioning another soul without encounter teaches patience, teaches compassion, teaches the art of quiet attentiveness to forces beyond my control, and reminds me that life is full of mysteries that cannot be hurried, cannot be forced, cannot be fully understood, but can be honored, cherished, and felt in their profound subtlety. There is a beauty in the unknown, a sacredness in the invisible, a power in the intangible, because it invites imagination to become a companion, reflection to become a guide, and the heart to expand beyond its ordinary limits. I imagine the weight of their presence not as a burden, but as a gift, a reminder that love is not always about possession, about certainty, about proof, but about awareness, about recognition, about the quiet joy of knowing that a soul exists that resonates with ours in ways we may never fully articulate, but which we feel with every fiber of our being. In this imagining, I can feel their laughter ripple through space and time, a sound I have never heard yet know intimately, a warmth that has never touched me yet penetrates the marrow of my being, a recognition that has no form yet exists in the deepest chambers of awareness. And so this imagining becomes a practice, a discipline of the heart, a way of connecting without expectation, of loving without demand, of knowing without proof. And in that practice, I am transformed. My perception of connection broadened, my capacity for empathy deepened, my understanding of love expanded beyond the ordinary measures of human experience. Every quiet moment, every solitary thought, every pause in the flow of ordinary life becomes a space where this imagined presence inhabits, shaping the way I move, feel, and perceive, teaching me that relationships begin long before first meetings, that intimacy can exist in the invisible, and that love is not always contingent upon sight, speech, or touch, but upon recognition, awareness, and resonance that are felt in the marrow of the heart. And so I carry these imaginings like delicate treasures, holding them with reverence, allowing them to shape me without ownership, to guide me without demanding, to teach me that even without meeting, even without speaking, even without seeing, connection exists as a living, breathing reality within the self, a reality that is quietly intimate, endlessly patient, infinitely beautiful, profoundly human, and utterly transformative in its capacity to expand the boundaries of what it means to know, to love, and to recognize another soul across the spaces of time, distance, and circumstance. And in that quiet, endless imagining, I feel a fullness that the world cannot provide, a closeness that no meeting could surpass, and a truth that whispers gently, but persistently, reminding me that the heart can know far more than the eyes, that love can exist before encounter, and that the act of imagining someone we have never met can be one of the most intimate, real, and sacred experiences a soul can have, a rehearsal for the heart, a meditation for the spirit, a gentle yet powerful acknowledgement that the invisible threads of life are already weaving a tapestry in which we are both present, known, and quietly celebrated. To love someone unseen is to embrace patience, hope, and the infinite possibility that two paths, once destined to cross, will meet in ways beyond expectation, revealing truths about the human heart that cannot be explained, only felt, only understood in the quiet moments when the mind steps aside and the soul opens fully to possibility. It is the love that exists not in possession, not in demonstration, not in immediate gratification, but in awareness, in the recognition of resonance that spans distance and circumstance, that thrives in spaces where ordinary understanding cannot reach, and that teaches the heart to wait without impatience, to hope without desperation, to cherish without demand. There is a sacredness in this type of love, a subtlety that asks us to trust in the invisible currents of life, to honor the ways the universe arranges encounters, and to understand that timing is not ours to control, but ours to respect, as the unseen hand of destiny quietly guides souls toward one another, whether in moments of coincidence or in the still, deliberate unfolding of fate. Loving someone unseen becomes a practice of mindfulness, an intimate awareness that every choice, every thought, every act of patience contributes to the shaping of a connection that may someday manifest in the physical world, but which already exists in the emotional and spiritual landscapes of our being. In this awareness, hope becomes an active force, not a passive longing, for it is built upon the recognition that love is not always immediate, not always visible, not always measurable, but it is persistent, enduring, and quietly undeniable. It grows silently, taking root in imagination, in reflection, in the contemplative spaces where the heart speaks most clearly, and where intuition reveals the contours of a bond that has not yet been tested by circumstance, yet already feels unbreakable. There is a tension in this type of love, a tension between anticipation and patience, between longing and contentment, between the unknown and the certain, that teaches the self to embrace ambiguity, to find beauty in uncertainty, and to honor the unfolding of life without rushing the inevitable. The heart, in loving someone unseen, becomes attuned to subtle signals, small alignments in thought and feeling that hint at the presence of another soul, and it learns to recognize that the absence of physical interaction does not negate intimacy, but rather enhances it, as it requires a deeper engagement with imagination, empathy, and reflection. Every day becomes an opportunity to cultivate this love, to nurture it with quiet attention, to allow it to shape perspective, enrich emotions, and transform the understanding of human connection. It is a love that teaches reverence for what is not yet tangible, for what exists beyond the senses, for what is felt more deeply than it can be observed, and it fosters a patience that is gentle yet resilient, humble yet unyielding, quiet yet profoundly powerful. In this patient devotion, there is a recognition that the act of waiting is itself an act of love, a practice that strengthens the capacity to see, to understand, and to embrace the extraordinary when it arrives, even in forms that differ from expectation. Loving someone unseen illuminates the sacredness of possibility, the beauty of potential, and the extraordinary nature of connection that transcends immediate circumstance. It allows the heart to stretch, to grow, and to inhabit a space where anticipation is a companion, not a tormentor, where hope is a guide, not a demand, where love exists fully even before meeting, fully even without confirmation, fully even in silence. There is a quiet certainty in this love that teaches the soul to recognize alignment, to feel resonance, and to honor the invisible threads that connect lives across space and time. Every imagined conversation, every contemplated gesture, every silent acknowledgement becomes a rehearsal for the eventual convergence of paths, a preparation of the self to recognize the reality that the heart has already sensed, a patient cultivation of readiness to meet a soul that is already familiar in the most profound, intangible ways. And in this cultivation, the heart learns to trust, the mind learns to release control, and the spirit learns to witness the extraordinary nature of life, which often arranges its most profound moments beyond human expectation, beyond sight, beyond reason, and yet precisely in accordance with the deep, unseen rhythms of connection, timing, and resonance that govern the universe. Loving someone unseen is an education in humility, a lesson in patience, a training of the imagination, and a testament to the power of the heart to recognize truth where proof is absent, to hold presence where touch is impossible, to feel love in its purest, most transcendent, and most enduring form, which does not demand, does not rush, does not question, but simply exists, quietly persistent, profoundly real, and infinitely transformative in its capacity to shape the self, prepare the soul, and illuminate the extraordinary beauty that comes from knowing, feeling, and loving someone before ever meeting them, in the sacred spaces where time, distance, and circumstance fall away, leaving only recognition, resonance, and the quiet, unwavering certainty that connection exists even when it cannot be seen. Every day I carry a sense of your existence quietly, not as an intrusion or as a demand, but as a subtle, persistent awareness that colors my thoughts, shapes my emotions, and lingers in the quiet moments of life, like a soft light that never fully fades. It is the awareness of a presence that has not been seen, a voice that has not been heard, a warmth that has not been touched, yet whose existence feels as undeniable as the rhythm of my own heartbeat, as essential as the air that moves through my lungs, as inevitable as the rising of the sun. This quiet acknowledgement becomes a companion, a constant and gentle reminder that life is more intricate than the physical world can capture, that connections exist beyond the realm of tangible experience, and that love can be real even when it is unseen, silent, and unconfirmed. Every thought of you becomes a meditation, a reflection on what it means to recognize another soul in the absence of conventional interaction, a contemplation of how life arranges invisible threads to connect hearts across space, circumstance, and even time itself. There is a subtle beauty in this experience, a paradoxical sensation where absence gives shape to presence, where longing creates intimacy, where the imagined and the real coexist aimlessly within the heart. I think about how, even without meeting you, I'm changed by your unseen existence, how my perceptions of possibility, hope, and connection have expanded because somewhere a life exists that resonates with mine in ways I cannot fully explain. And in carrying this awareness, I have learned to cultivate a patience that is gentle, to honor the invisible without forcing it into the visible, and to allow the heart to recognize the profound subtlety of love that is felt long before it is proven. Every quiet moment, every solitary reflection, every pause in the ordinary rhythm of life becomes a space in which your presence, though unseen, leaves its imprint, shaping the way I dream, shaping the way I imagine, shaping the way I hope for the unfolding of something that is not yet tangible but already profoundly real in the heart. In these contemplations, I understand that knowing someone without meeting them is not an act of absence, but an act of engagement, an awareness that love and connection can exist in realms beyond sight, beyond sound, beyond expectation, and that such awareness can teach patience, empathy, and the quiet wisdom of the soul. I imagine how our eventual meeting, if it ever comes, will be imbued with the richness of all the anticipation, all the silent recognition, all the imagined interactions that have preceded it. And in that imagining, I feel a completeness that is both serene and exhilarating. It is a realization that love is not defined solely by the immediacy of interaction or the certainty of presence, but by the depth of recognition, the resonance of emotion, and the enduring acknowledgement of another soul that exists in parallel with ours, quietly shaping the course of our inner world, preparing the heart, and fostering a connection that does not require verification, yet is entirely real. Every heartbeat becomes a silent affirmation of your existence, every thought a reflection on the subtle ways in which lives intersect without knowing, every breath a quiet tribute to the unseen ties that bind souls across distance, circumstance, and time. And even though the world may measure connection by proximity or tangible interaction, I have come to understand that the most profound relationships are often formed in the invisible spaces, in the quiet awareness that someone out there shapes our inner world simply by existing, simply by being known in ways that do not require confirmation, simply by resonating with the parts of ourselves that we cannot see. Carrying this awareness has transformed the way I perceive intimacy, trust, and love, teaching me that presence is not limited to touch, that recognition is not limited to sight, and that understanding another soul does not always require meeting them in the physical world. Instead, it requires listening, feeling, imagining, and allowing the heart to recognize resonance wherever it exists, even in the absence of proof, even in the absence of acknowledgement. Even in the absence of circumstance. It is a love and a knowing that exists in patience, in hope, in quiet anticipation, in the subtle acknowledgement of potential, and in the continuous cultivation of awareness that prepares the self for a meeting that may come, that may not, but whose significance already exists in the depth of feeling. Every day, carrying the sense of you quietly becomes both an education and a blessing, teaching the heart to expand, the soul to wait, the imagination to flourish, and the spirit to recognize the extraordinary beauty of unseen connections, reminding me that the truest forms of love often exist long before the first hello, long before the first glance, long before the world can witness what has already been known in the heart, quietly shaping thought, emotion, and expectation in ways that are subtle, profound, and endlessly transformative. A knowledge that grows in silence, a love that endures in invisibility, a presence that exists fully without need of recognition. Meeting you may be inevitable, or it may remain a beautiful mystery, and yet the knowing itself, the quiet recognition, the sense of presence that exists without form, without proof, without confirmation, is a gift beyond measure, a whisper of the universe that touches the heart in ways the mind cannot fully grasp. A gentle but persistent certainty that someone exists who resonates with the deepest parts of our soul, shaping our thoughts, coloring our emotions, and inspiring our imagination long before any physical encounter. It is a strange and beautiful paradox to love someone fully, to recognize someone completely, without having ever touched them, spoken to them, or shared a single glance. And in this paradox, there is both wonder and solace, a quiet acknowledgement that love is far larger than the limitations of circumstance, and that connection is not always something that can be proven, only felt. In carrying this knowing, one begins to understand the extraordinary power of anticipation, of hope, and of subtle awareness, as life quietly unfolds in ways that prepare the heart, test the patience, and nurture the imagination for the eventual convergence of paths, whether that meeting comes tomorrow, years from now, or never in the physical sense at all. There is a sacredness to this recognition, a depth that cannot be measured by time, by proximity, or by action, a depth that exists entirely within the consciousness and the heart, teaching lessons about patience, trust, and the enduring power of invisible bonds that guide us toward experiences and people that matter, even when their presence has not yet been realized. Every day, the awareness of you becomes a companion in quiet moments, a source of reflection and inspiration, a gentle reminder that the heart is capable of perceiving connections that the mind cannot always explain, that the soul can recognize truths before the world can confirm them, and that love is not always contingent upon interaction, presence, or affirmation, but exists independently, persistent, patient, and transformative in its own subtle, undeniable way. There is a beauty in the uncertainty, a grace in the not knowing, and a profundity in the anticipation, because these spaces between reality and imagination allow the heart to grow, to stretch, and to become capable of recognizing love in its purest and most resilient form, a love that is flexible, patient, and capable of embracing the unknown with curiosity and reverence. In imagining the possibility of meeting, there is also the understanding that love is not always about arrival, but about awareness, that connection is not always about proof, but about resonance, and that sometimes the most profound bonds exist entirely in recognition, in intuition, and in quiet consciousness that spans distances both physical and temporal. It is in this understanding that one begins to see the extraordinary nature of human connection, the way lives intersect long before they meet, the way emotions can align across vast spaces, and the way anticipation itself becomes a form of intimacy, a deep knowing that two souls are, in some sense, aware of each other, even without acknowledgement, even without interaction, even without form. Every imagined conversation, every contemplative thought, every fleeting reflection becomes a meditation on the possibilities of life and love, a rehearsal for what may or may not come, and a recognition that the heart is capable of holding presence, intimacy, and affection without need of validation. A quiet and enduring awareness that someone out there already shapes our inner world by simply existing, by simply being, by simply resonating in ways that cannot be measured but can be felt with absolute clarity. And in that awareness, patience is cultivated, trust is nurtured, hope is strengthened, and imagination is allowed to flourish, creating a space where love exists as a living, breathing presence, independent of circumstance, untethered from expectation, and entirely real in its effect on the heart, the mind, and the spirit. The anticipation of meeting, or even the acceptance that meeting may never occur, teaches humility, gratitude, and the profound capacity of the heart to know beyond the evidence of the senses, to recognize the soul in its essence rather than its appearance, to honor connection without possession, and to cherish resonance without demand. In this way, love becomes a quiet education, a gentle revelation, a meditation on the invisible threads that guide existence, and a celebration of the enduring truth that we can know, feel, and be profoundly changed by someone we have never met, that our hearts are capable of carrying awareness across space and time, and that connection, once recognized, transforms the way we perceive reality, relationships, and the potent potential for extraordinary encounters. Meeting you may remain a mystery, a future moment, or perhaps something that never manifests in the physical world, and yet the knowledge, the feeling, the resonance already exists, complete in its quiet, patient, and infinite presence, teaching that the soul is capable of intimacy before proximity, that love can exist without evidence, and that recognition itself is a sacred, transformative, and enduring gift of life, an acknowledgement that the heart is attuned to truths the mind may never fully understand, and that knowing someone in this way is one of the most profound, humbling, and beautiful experiences a person can carry, nurturing the self, expanding the spirit, and holding space for the extraordinary potential of life, love, and connection, even before the first hello, the first glance, the first touch, the first word, the first shared breath.